over a little bit this way.
This, you're moving
And
towards
then
the
you
middle.
move.
Yeah.
Yeah, here we go. Hi, this is Janet Fitch, and it is noon on Wednesday Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, and so it is Writing Wednesday, where we answer your writing questions. And just a warning, I have painters around, so if you hear sanding, that's just the way it is. And we have a guest today. This is Andrew Nicholls, who is um, among many different writing talents, is preparing a short story collection now. And I thought that that would be a very interesting topic for our Writing Wednesday today. Hi, Hope. Good to see you. So, the short story collection is a special animal, and preparing it is not just it's not like just putting a bunch of stuff in a salad bowl and saying, here, you figure it out. There's a quite a quite a bunch of thinking that goes be that goes with a short story collection, and how do you order it and how do you think about it. And we'll talk about some of our favorite short story collections, and please, if you have short story collections that really do it for you, we're going to talk about that. And so Andrew has written is a prolific short story writer, both longer forms and short humor pieces. So he's got a lot to juggle when it comes to collecting his work for a submission. And let's. So how's it been going?
Well, I've reached a point of illusory confidence, let's say. So I've got them, I think, in the right order, although I may mess with that later. And even reading the names of the people I'm sending them to, that may, like, oh, I shouldn't put that near the front. That's too much like so and so. But I'm assembling a list of 10 agents, and I've never sent a collection out before, and I've never had a literary agent, so it's all new.
Yeah, Andrew's done mostly TV, screenwriting, animation, and joke writing for comics and late night. So this is the literary side of things. He's been extremely successful with short stories. He's sold like 17 short stories. So I think he's one of the things that publishers, agents, that industry, hi Laura, is looking for is our publications. And so if you are writing short stories, to hold your nose, hold your breath, get together with other short story writers if you need to get the courage to send out, but send your stuff out. It doesn't really, I shouldn't say it doesn't matter where, it's great if you got it into the Atlantic or the New Yorker, but every publication matters, whether it's Left Eyebrow Gazette or Dog Breath Review, or it doesn't matter. Any publisher, any agent looking at your work knows how it's rare to get short stories published. Anybody who's submitting them knows that Andrew calls the submittable site the rejectionizer. So you get your rejections, and think of them as badges of honor. Just the sheer bulk of the rejections is, that you're getting closer. You can't win if you don't play, and it's a numbers game. So Andrew has managed to get all these stories published in print and in online.
Online type journals, yeah, and they're not all stories either. I mean, I'm supplementing what you would consider a short story, a fictional narrative of a character going through something, with more comical, light pieces, 3 or 4 pages, the sort of thing that might run in the New Yorker as a shots and murmur. Um, silly light pieces as what amuse bouches, or as I guess little sorbets in between the stories. So
So
putting those in order has been a
so
consideration.
that is a really good first question, is when you have a mixture of story types rather than a single flavor, how do you what are your thoughts about organizing those stories?
I at first laid them all out, read them all, and then made a list of characteristics of each story, all on one page, story title, and then characteristics in the story. For example, a lot of them seem to have ducks and water for some reason.
Canadian.
I was able to change two of them from ducks to geese, and then eliminate the duck in another. A lot of them had red-haired women as a secondary character, of all ages. There were two, with this character had the same name. They were written between 2011, let's say, and maybe 2020. So I didn't have the overview of what was going on in them until now. They're past and present. They're third person and first. They're male and female. They're set on, like rocket ships and farms. My big problem at first was that there didn't seem to be a unifying element. And that's still something I think about. They just jump all over the place.
So how do you present them as a unified?
Well, probably at the moment, what I'm looking at is by a uniformity of style. So with humor. So they're mostly humorous. There's one grim story, which is actually the first one I ever published in Black Clock. But the rest are teasing or silly or whimsical, excuse me, or have a funny character or a silly situation. And so I'm looking at the degree of craziness in the world. There's also 9 of them, which I know an element that you love. I'm talking about 37 stories and articles here altogether. There's 9 of them that have a character facing the fact that something very unusual has happened in the world. One thing, just one thing, and the rest of the world doesn't seem to be aware of it. So do you put all those together? If I assembled only those 9, it's only a 110-page collection, so I need the other stuff. Do I interleaf the other things?
What was your decision?
When I looked at the stories that I enjoyed reading the most, that engaged me the most, especially for the variety, you start with a male present, and then you go to third-person female past, and then you go to the 1850s and the potash industry. What kept me interested in certain stories, into putting them together, these chain together really well. Those oddity stories all seem to end up at the beginning or near the beginning. I didn't want them all in a row. It started to feel, here's another one like that. So I had to split those up.
So sort of like a dinner party, who you seat next to who.
Yeah, and it's not quite like, I've routined material for years. I worked on variety shows for TV shows and hosts, and so you would do a 3-minute or 4-minute comedy bit where you have assembled jokes, and you've got them and you like them all, but you have to put them in an order. One of them has to be first. One of them, crucially, has to be last, which you hope will generate applause. But putting those in order is, I'm finding, quite a different skill from organizing things that take the sustained attention of a set of different fictional narratives. It's the first time I've ever done this, so I was seeking your advice a lot.
Well, see, Laura here is saying George Saunders' 10th of December jumps around as well, and very much in the tenor of your work.
And I was horrified when I first started looking at the authors I love the most. I've got Pastoralia here as an example of just this, and
by George Saunders.
George Saunders and Civil War Land, and 10th of December, and the Brain Dead Megaphone, and all of George's stuff. His agent doesn't take submissions or even queries, so there was an excellent opportunity. I can still refer to him because people know his work so well. But also, in his early books, he had a uniformity of style. In every story seemed to be set in a crazy, imaginary, futuristic theme park, or a great number of them were. And I would often wonder, as I read them and loved them, if maybe that was all he could write. Of course, Lincoln and the Bardo showed the whole other set of skills, characters, and the depth that he had. But I could see how you put those in order. That seems to be easy. But when you've gone from writing about a Doukhobor family in 1903, British Columbia, to a future in which cats are being hired on the police force, the styles are different, the places, the voice, the types of joke are different. And sometimes you praise them equally, but when you flip the direction, you go, oh, no, that's the way it works. That was new to me.
Interesting. So to notice, how they, one lingering in your mind. So it's more like DJing, where
Yes, yeah.
it's you have to think, okay, this is a, Georgian throat singing group. What am I going to play next? And you're live, you're in the studio, and it's like, there's the rhythm of the pace of that song would go really well with T-Rex's Slider. So let's do, so it's like a very subtle echo
Right.
that you pick
Yeah.
up, that could be theme, that could be length, that could be it could be locale, it
And also
could be
weather. It's everything that you talk about in these. It's weather, character, it's light, it's tempo, it's voice.
that any one of those could
And
be
if
the
you're
thread.
a DJ, you look at the end of a song and will it fit with the beginning of the next song? Is the mood consonant in some way, or does it comment humorously and adjointly in some clever way and take you out of that down mood and perk you up? Or does it take you from that happy, silly ending and then say, "And now something we should think about more seriously"? Because they both work. But I found going from uh, serious to comedy was more jarring than the other direction.
Interesting.
I like going from something with a happy, silly ending and then saying, "Okay, now let's get serious." Seems to work better than, "Okay, now let's joke around. Now that I've brought you down and showed you."
So you might need something like gentle, so a transition that
Yeah,
will
and my transition pieces are often these um, small single page or 2 page silly things. Like I wrote a history of bear baiting, as if it was in a review section of the New York Times. Um, from the 1820s to contemporary North Carolina.
so that it's a lot like writing chapters in fiction. If you're not a plotter, and even if you are a plotter, is you thinking you have a big scene, you want to follow it with a small scene. You have a group, you might want a single person, a single character in the next one. And if something is outdoor, then indoor. And
Yeah.
some with working with the variety you have rather than trying to downplay it.
And it's tough for me, as I say, not having done it, to judge when the jarring is effective and interesting, or where it actually helps the smoothness. If you're ending a story which is set at a family picnic and there's 16 characters and someone got stung by a bee, but everybody knows everybody else, and a small revelation was made. So you're outdoors. It's sunnier. They wouldn't be picnicking. Um, Going to a story in which a harried businesswoman is showing up and her rental car is not available at an airport in a city she doesn't know for a conference she's nervous about. That just seems to click for me. That's like, that fits well.
To go from everybody knowing each other in this tight circle to
Yeah.
the poor individual on their own.
It's like what you say
in a
about
difficult situation.
profluence from chapter to chapter, but also even from sentence to sentence. You want to say, here's why you keep watching. Here's why you keep reading. Okay, you've seen that, but now look at this. And what happens with a story collection of this size, I've got 86,000 words, about 300 double-spaced pages, is that inevitably you put all your darlings, oh, that fits, and then you end up with 7 pieces that are kind of similar all at the end. So that doesn't work. And then you have to make some sacrifices. You have to persuade yourself that, oh, this silly piece about cavemen, oh, well, maybe that would go well after the food review piece.
The interesting thing is here is, and we've gone back and forth on this, is the first story. What's going to be the first story in the collection? Because like any other piece of fiction, when you send it out to agents, which is the stage that Andrew is at, you might only get one story read. If they don't like that first story, they might not read on.
It's the equivalent, I guess, of what in sitcom or movie samples my writing partner and I used to call a 10-15. That's where you read the first 10 pages and then throw it 15 feet. And something that you look down on or think is a minor work, someone else, it sometimes happens, will say, oh my God, that was my favorite thing. But you got to generalize. And so we've gone back and forth, you and I, on I said, oh, I put such and such a story first. And you said, no, I think you should start with
But it's
this other one.
ultimately Andrew's, collection. I opine, as you know, but I
Yeah, but
also
you're the pro. I mean,
no,
you know this world.
I have never done a short story collection.
But agencies,
But just to know
publishing.
how busy those people are that you are submitting your work to, and with
Yeah.
the knowledge that they might only read one story, which story are you going to start with? Really, usually now in long fiction, I am super concerned with the end, that it stays with the reader. But I think in a short story collection, what you start with is going to really matter.
And there's two things to think of there. There's immediate impact of the story taken by itself. This sold, the editor loved it. Do you have any more? We all laughed, kind of stuff. And then, well, the people I'm sending this to, uh, is this going to come off as amusing as it may have been as a solo? Is this really representative of the rest of them? Or are they going to read this and love it and then go, wait a minute, there's nothing else like this in there. You promised this. Obviously, a lot of nervousness and anxiety and not knowing what I'm
Ordering and
doing.
reordering. But there's
Yeah.
something about working with the short and the long stories that we've talked about this in Writing Wednesday many a time, that whatever you set up for the reader, they will accept. So if you have
Yeah.
short and long stuff, do it fairly soon so that they accept that there's going to be short ones, like short, in your case, short funny ones in between the longer serious stories. So it doesn't jar them when it does come.
Right. Yeah.
Although some people would section them, so you have
I tried that. Yeah.
16, full length stories and then, 25 of the little pieces.
Well, I wrote 40 short silly pieces for a parody site, a parody of a literary site run by Ellis Weiner, formerly the editor of the National Lampoon. His site was the Sherman Oaks Review of Books, and it was
Sherman Oaks being
being a small town.
being a quiet suburb in the valley
And
in
so
Los Angeles.
these were random, silly ideas. It was like rate your superhero rescuer on Yelp, and
I love that.
the young adult book section in the Library of Alexandria. Hop on Imhotep, and oh, the cholera you'll see, and things like that. So one page, page and a half, a lot of condensed laughs, and I tried putting a piece in the middle which just said, and now a brief break from, and now for something completely different. They worked well by themselves. There wasn't enough of them for a book, and they just seemed to be a bomb in the middle of the book.
And so you have to go with how
So
you
well, I
feel.
took them out.
Yeah, you have to, save them. There'll be another time. Anybody have thoughts about, the short story collections that you've read and how they organize their stories, how they flow? Do they tend to keep one theme going, or do they play more a symphonic um, collection? I know Faulkner's collection, um, his short story collection, covers the waterfront. It goes from barn burning, a small town probably in the 30s, and a really nasty character who is seen from the point of view of his son, and he's somebody who, when somebody gets on his nerves, he'll like burn their barn down. And then what's the son going to do? Up front, some of the spooky Gothic stories, Southern stories earlier, and then as it moves along, you get into comedic stories. You get into World War I. He was uh, in the Canadian Air Force. Um, so it establishes a theme and then it moves away from it.
And you always, in his or in Flannery O'Connor's or in Carson McCullers, have a feeling of them being very strongly there. Those authors, and a sense of place in the case of, or of time, the 40s and 50s, Carson McCullers.
I like that there's a season in yours that you tend to.
A season.
You tend to like winter, as a Canadian.
I don't think there's some
summer,
winterish
lake.
pieces, but there's a lot of water, which surprised me. Because also surprising me is that after all those, there's only one that has anything to do with television, which I've spent my life on in studio stages. There's only one story that even touches on or mentions the idea of showbiz at all. The rest are, I guess, long submerged childhood fishing trips and things, and just pure fantasy. I mean, the things that I've liked about collections that I've read recently, Lauren Groff's Florida, or
we brought some of our favorite short story collections. If anybody has not read Florida by Lauren Groff, genius.
Maxime Osipov.
So obviously location is the common theme.
Yeah, Rock, Paper, Scissors by Maxime Osipov, translated by a friend of ours, Boris Tereliuk.
This is these are very long stories. It's kind of more on the Chekhovian level, and character studies of characters who are struggling in very difficult circumstances, just hanging in. Oh, wonderful stories. So how would somebody describe your collection? How would somebody describe your collection if, say an agent is trying to sell it? You can't really say this really great collection is all over the place.
Yeah.
Another fantastic short story collection. I just have to show this off. Always Happy Hour by Mary Miller. Yeah. She wrote Biloxi. She's a humorist, somewhat of a humorist, modern people, small town, really good.
The Dark Addicts. The Dark by Samantha Hunt.
Yeah, which I don't have a copy of right now. Here is Ramona Reeves. It Falls Gently All Around. She is a Southern writer. Is she in Mobile, Alabama? Sometimes the Southerners are such good writers. And this is, the clash of the old and the new South. A lot of them. It's a very interesting story.
And of course, Jesus' son, Dennis Johnson, united by stupidity and drugs.
And here's another one. I love these stories. Nafisa Thompson Spires, The Heads of the Colored People, about suburban Black people, up and coming versus neighborhood people. This is just so spot on. I love that book.
For which also Dana Johnson's California.
Yeah. We couldn't bring them all down. I do these sort of.
But then you're right. What do you say in your letter? What do you say? I mean, I'm going to approach 10 people at the same time. Which is the way Janet suggests do it to save time. Don't wait for them to answer one after the other. Just shoot it out there. So I'm preparing 10 different letters, each of which says, "Hi, we met at," or "I like your clients so and so," or I've got a collection and I'm writing to you because. That's the way it always starts. Because I think there's a similarity in, or I was very attracted by your
they
choice of
always want what they call comps, and in long fiction, it's what books are your books going to be on the same shelf with. In short stories, you can also, like Andrew's. I mean, George Saunders is the immediate, immediately you can see the resonance, but also there's a TV show, Black Mirror, that is kind of has that surreal element that a lot of his longer stories have. That's excellent. Can we show them the Poets and Writers book?
Oh, yeah.
Now, those of you who are not members of Poets and Writers, just take a look at their website, pw.org. It's so much information for writers. And if you're going to join any writers association, start with Poets and Writers. They have the most wonderful book, Poets and Writers Complete Guide to Being a Writer. And it has all the information you can possibly imagine, including members have been so kind as to submit their query letters. I mean, big writers, and you can see how they query a book. Um, you have, everybody should have this in their library.
And with a novel, they'll briefly describe, the hook, the pitch. But with short story collections, generally they start with, I studied with so and so, or my stories focus on, or I find myself attracted to so and so, or very much in the vein of the writers I admire, such as.
Yeah.
And I'm fiddling at the moment with a paragraph that summarizes the settings of a selection of these to show, and I hope the settings all sound amusing or engaging. This character is stuck here. This character has this happen. And your other professional connections. We go every second year to the community of writers up in Olympic Valley in the Sierra Nevadas. So connections there, agents, other writers.
But the organization of the piece itself, how you describe it, is a very strange thing to describe your own work, because we work so intuitively. You work on the piece you're working on. You're not thinking, I'm exploring themes of, we don't think that way. Fiction writers don't think that way anyway. We finish up and then we go, what the hell was that about? And it's like, oh yeah, I noticed that many of these, so you're going to read your stories over and then think, oh, there's a lot of people who, something changes in their world, just one small thing changes, and how that reverberates in larger and larger and larger ways. It strikes your most of your stories.
And I've taken 2 of these stories since they were published, one in 2012, one in 2014, I think, and turned them into television series pilots. One of them, I even wrote 6 episodes of the thing. And that was a while ago, and, agents had a look, and they were sent to people in TV. And now I look at the original story, and sometimes I'm missing, wait a minute, where's... I'm misremembering and thinking that the TV version, which became visual and obvious and procedural for me, was the short story. But no, the short story works a different way.
But it's looking for it. It's one thing to be, what do they call it? Programming
I call it routining.
The stories, like picking up the thread of this story will have, say, a mystery and kind of some violence at the heart of it. So, am I going to pick that one up in the next thing, or am I going to pick locale, or am I going to pick weather, or am I going to pick, what element of that story do I do with and then what do I do with the next one, and then what do you do with the next one? And then you have to work backwards too, because you'll lose. I mean, I have 4, then you might have 4 stories that don't fit, as you were saying.
Or which are too similar, or which have characteristics that would lead anyone reading them to say, oh, did you have a deadbeat, abusive father? No, I don't know how that got in there. I don't know why. I've got 6 deadbeat fathers in these stories.
Because it's men's, they deal with men, a lot of the stories deal with men's helplessness.
Yes.
They're taking a powder when they can't handle the standing up. They hide out, they take off, and then both ends of that, the father's end of that, also the child's end of that, and maybe the exasperated mother who stays.
And sometimes it's purely mechanical. It's the inclusion of a more involved and loving parent would steer the story in a interesting, perhaps, but different direction.
Yeah, those loving parents just screw everything up.
It's like in sitcoms. It's why they're single parents. You don't need 2 people saying, oh, honey, don't toboggan down.
It's why they're never mothers in Disney movies, because nothing would happen if the mother was there.
Well, the mother has to either agree with the father, in which case she's superfluous, or she has to disagree, in which case you require an argument which takes up screen time.
Yeah. It's a short story.
Yeah, that's right. So
I don't know where most of our short story reading, for my side comes from, people who I've heard at the community who teaches at the teach at the community of writers. I'll read reviews, but it's very interesting to think about how do you talk about a short story collection in a way that picks up its essence. And that is such a good exercise for you to be thinking about your own work, because we don't think about our own work objectively. We don't think about ourselves objectively. Oh, what's Janet like? God, I just think, what would people say if they were trying to describe, a person like me or you or whatever? We don't think of ourselves at all. And I think the same thing is with our work. Who thinks of their short story collection, of their short stories? What are the common themes? But it's very illuminating to do so.
Some of them in mine are close enough, that is, period and place, that I, for a while, considered maybe going back and trying to make them linked. If one has a father who runs a liquor store, then, for example, mentioning in another story, and then my uncle who ran a liquor store, and using the same title. Oh, it's the same character. This is his cousin. I didn't get very far into that.
Well, that's something that's very popular, and has been for the last 10 years or so, is the novel in stories, the linked
Yeah.
stories. And so a short story collection actually stands out from that.
Good.
You're not linking the stories. They don't have to be that thematically linked, that, uniform in
Do you think it would be
location.
interesting if someone was reading a collection and realized that story number 9, that a character in it, was the son of the character
I like
in
that.
story 2,
I do like
but
that.
without any other connections, just that much?
Mhm.
Well, something
I
to
do like
consider.
that.
Yeah.
I do like that. And then both of us are great readers of Best American short stories. And it's very interesting how if you've read them over time, the taste of the editors change remarkably. They always have a guest editor, and the difference between one editor and the next is astonishing. What they think is the best.
It's a typical one. This is 2021. So Jesmyn Ward edited and chose these authors, and there'd be perhaps 20 of them. And you can see the taste. You will have an author whose taste, as you come to appreciate it, reading their choices, has to do with atmosphere, but in which, if you prefer more event in your story, maybe you're slightly disappointing. And others who just jump right into it, where the first sentence of every story hooks you. I like the hooky ones.
Uh-huh.
But they tend to have less beautiful language in them. Beautiful language pads, as you know, and I've always been nervous about handing in really long stories. Mine average maybe 5,000 or 6,000 words.
Yeah, mine average about 40 pages. That's why I don't
Yeah.
publish short stories as much as some people do. Then there's Lydia Davis, which I didn't bring that collection down. That's like this, but the stories are very, very short.
Some are a paragraph.
Yeah.
2 pages, and they have a delightful kaleidoscopic, colorful overview of the world. You can be looking through a microscope in one, and then the next one you're in a dirigible. You really get transported around the world.
So what do you think about the advice that, was it Derek Brown, the poet, or was it Amber Tamblyn, another poet? But somebody said the way you organize a reading of your poetry is funny, 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 serious. What was the order?
She said funny, 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 serious, funny, 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 sell. And and I copied that for something else I'm doing for public reading. But yeah, the idea is you're trying to sell a book, And so people love to be amused. Don't bring them in grim. But on the other hand, have a little depth in there, and then get away from that. Be funny again, and then say, "Here, if you want more of this."
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in fact, that could actually play towards the way
Yeah,
one organizes a
that's
collection.
right.
You know,
Mm.
draw 'em in, draw 'em in, draw 'em in, big story, and then funny, funny,
Make them
funny.
laugh. Make them laugh. Stab them in the eye. Offer a bandage.
So how about
Yeah.
anybody writing short stories? Anybody having to deal with the routining problem of what you put first, what you put next?
I also sometimes read collections, and I'll come to the third or fourth story and like it so much, I'll think, "Oh my God, this they should have started with this. Why?" And then I go and look at the name of the editor, and I look at the name of the agent, and wonder how is something that's wonderful not. Someone else advised me, put 3 good stories first, but also put 2 of your best stories at the end, so that you go out on a tour de force. I'm playing with that idea too. Yeah. So where does the junk go? Put the junk.
There's no junk.
Put the junk 8
Don't
and
take
9.
it, don't have it. You know, I think that one of the things that works well in a short story collection is your, if you've written novella, anything novella length, long short story. So to have, say, 8 or 10 short stories and then a novella to anchor it. I'm seeing a lot of that these days.
Yeah, yeah, and you would say that you would end with that, with the novella, because as in The Dead in Joyce, in Dubliners.
Yeah, you end with a novella.
So you don't do the 40-pager and then go back to a 12-pager.
No,
You're giving them the main course.
You're out of there. Yeah.
I've got one long one, which is a chapter, which I mean, the New Yorker, very often you read their fiction and you get the feeling, oh, this is a chapter of something. We just went to a reading 2 days ago by a friend whose book is coming out, and one chapter from that book ran in the New Yorker as fiction. And I often wonder if the agent and author and editor of the New Yorker look at it and say, well, you need something at the end. This just reads too much like a chapter. Have something happen, kill the clown, do something. And that maybe it accounts for what you sometimes say with some fiction that doesn't hit you hard, is you feel that it ends, instead of ending, it goes up into the trees. And then the swallows came, and we all looked at each other, and I had another Coke at the end. It's like, no, that's not an ending.
Yeah, the New Yorker short story thing. I'm going to show you that Faulkner. So you continue to address this question.
I just tap dance.
No, continue to think about this thing.
The other thing, of course, too, is that when you're writing the individual stories, you're completely absorbed in them. And if you were to be told, if your future self came back and said, oh, by the way, I know you're working on this and you're all caught up in it, but this is going to be the 7th story in a collection, would that change how you did it? Would you try and make it sit and resonate and have a voice that placed it in the world of other people and other times? Or does it just completely not matter? I'm leaning more and more to think it doesn't matter.
So here is the stories of F. Scott Fitzgerald, edited by Malcolm Cowley, one of the legendary editors in America. And what he does is he sections the you see here we are. So the sections are early success, glamour and disillusionment, retrospective, Basil and Josephine, and then last act and epilogue. So he's doing it thematically, like glamour and disillusionment, and putting his stories there. Retrospective, I don't even know who Basil and Josephine are. I haven't read those stories. And then the last act and epilogue. There are a lot of Babylon Revisited, a lot of alcoholic stories, because that's how Fitzgerald turned out. So you might, for instance, have Canadian stories, stories of surrealism, that surrealistic streak that you have. You could call it, you can't call it Black Mirror, but the idea of the surrealistic stories, and then just plain silly, you
Mm,
know, and chunk it out instead
yeah.
of trying to get the continuous thing. Here's Faulkner, the Faulkner, um, and so what he has here, the way this is organized, can we see that?
A little more to center.
Okay.
The country, the village,
You
the right
can't really see it.
place.
So
Yeah.
the way this is done is not chronologically. It is the country, which starts with barn burning, which is one of the great Faulkner stories, and then it goes to the village, and then that one starts with A Rose for Emily, which is one of the great Gothic horror ones. Then the wilderness. So he's going on by place rather than chronologically, like the Fitzgerald. Um, the country, the village, the wilderness, the wasteland, which is, I think, the war stuff. Um, and there are only 5 stories in that. Then the middle ground, which is sort of middle aged, and then beyond, which looks like Europe, away from, so it's locale. So Faulkner, everything is place. Although there's the middle ground, Middle Ages. Let's see if anybody else is sectioned. Um, I hadn't bothered to look at this. Um, but it's something you might look at, maybe if you have a longer, um, or a more varied bunch of stories. Okay, that is
You have,
not.
I know you weren't crazy about Cloud Atlas, but it actually does a daisy chain of stories so that someone or
Right.
something that is being read or is literary or creative in one story turns out influencing or being influenced by the subsequent story, and that's clever. But that is
Right.
very intentional, and that is a novel.
Yeah, Cloud Atlas is sort of a. I don't know if anybody's read or seen the Sargasso manuscript, where you're in a story in a movie, and somebody starts telling a story, and then boom, 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 then you're in that story, and it goes down and down and down, one after the other, and then you get to the center, and then you start coming up again, and that's
Or like
Cloud
or
Atlas.
Calvino.
Let's see about Osipov. Um,
Sad
no,
Russians. No, just a lot of sad Russians.
Florida.
Florida has Florida. I mean, it has a very deep sense of place.
Yeah. But the way Faulkner's stories are grouped is interesting. They made an effort to help the reader understand where they are in Faulkner's world.
I've seen collections too. I'm trying to think if Marissa Silber's Babe in Paradise, and there's another one. Title I can't remember. Female author, L.A. But she has some linked stories with the same characters going through different periods of their life, and you get to story 3, and oh, it's her again, but she's not a waitress now. Now she's working in a bowling alley, and that works really well for me.
Yeah.
I just don't have that. I wasn't able to plan, or it never occurred to me to have that kind of coherence. I also don't write about anything that is like me ever. I mean, I don't use family stories. I don't model anything on people I've worked with or that I know. They all come out of nowhere. And so there isn't naturally something to make them cohere. If you've worked as a waitress, let's say, for 20 years, you're bound to have a lot of customer stories. If you drink a lot, you're going to have a lot of Cheever stories or a lot of Raymond Carver stories, united by frustration and divorce. And if your life has been that kind of life, they say a sad childhood is the writer's toolbox. I guess I didn't have that toolbox. I'm making the toolbox as I go, so I don't have the unity of heroin addiction, like Dennis Johnson.
Well, it's, if anybody says that you have to be have had a terrible childhood to be a good writer, I think Andrew is proof that you can have a good imagination too, and curiosity and whimsy and whatever he does. I wanted to show Lisa Alvarez's new book, Some Final
Oh,
Beauty
yeah.
and Other Stories, because then we go to what do you call the collection? I saw Lisa at Beyond Baroque, and if anybody lives in LA, Beyond Baroque, sign up, check them out, see what they're doing every week. There's more stuff. The Iowa Writers Workshop was defunded, the international writing workshop out of out of the Iowa out of Ames, Iowa, out of the University of Iowa, has teamed up with Beyond Baroque. And they're doing classes and they're doing all kinds of stuff through Beyond Baroque. So they're a wonderful organization to support. But this is a terrific collection. And it's about, now see, here I go. Okay. A lot of the stories are about young activists, political activists in their, but often in a kindly, humorous way of realizing how idealism can be kind of impractical, and the choices people made at that juncture could have been kind of misguided. And she just has such a gentle touch with that, with an earlier time and place and self. Family, chaotic family, like early family. This is such a brilliant book. I highly recommend.
It also comes all the way up to the present, though, or the near present, with a story about a neighbor who starts seeing clues, that her neighbor went and stormed the Capitol on January 6th, and just trying to put it together, and what should she do, and how should she feel about this nice guy. And Lisa was asked after her reading, how did she pick the title? And she said, well, it was going to be a chapter title. It was going to be one of the story titles. And she went through them and read them, and the audience laughed at the inappropriateness of some of them as book titles.
Yeah.
And this had the generality and the sort of the summation, the feeling.
Right.
And it's got the word beauty in it, which can't hurt. Yeah, and I'm having, what do I do? What do I call mine? Blank and Other Stories? Or do I pick an entirely new title? And
I don't know. Let's see what we have here.
Yeah.
We're going to be voting here. Okay, Some Final Beauty, that was a story. Florida is the place. I don't know that there was an actual story called Florida. No. Nope. So she picked that, or somebody picked it. Also, if it sells, your editor can pick it. Rock, Paper, Scissors, and Other Stories. I believe that's a story.
That's a story title, yeah.
But these are long stories. These, this was, I think, 10, maybe 12 long stories. Always Happy Hour, which is a terrific. There's a lot of drinking and drug using in this. Very fun. Oh, God, this is such a great book. Which is Norton, an excellent publisher. And Always Happy Hour was one of the story names. And these wonderful stories published everywhere, all kinds of places.
Manual for Cleaning Women, Lucia Berlin. Was that a title
That was
of one of the books? It was.
I don't know.
Because the collection was assembled posthumously.
Let's see if it's on the shelf. We can take a look at it.
I wouldn't know to find it.
It Falls Gently All Around, I believe, is one of the stories. Yeah. But not the first one, the fourth one. Heads of the Colored People, I believe, is the first story in this collection. Yes. So you can call it, I've got an Updike one called Trust Me up there that has a lot of writing that you guys here on Writing Wednesday told me about, that Updike collection. And so I went out and got it. So
Okay.
let's see what people are saying. Betty Ann says, I love that rejection pays. I heard a
Hmm.
speaker once say we have to fall over 116 times to then succeed. Is that in learning to walk? Keep trying, don't give up. Yeah. And Hyde was in it. And then Betty Ann also loves Canadians. So that's very good. And Laura talks about George Saunders, 10th of December. Um, Bozena says, impossible to choose the best one. Short stories. The ones I enjoy most usually don't impress others
Hmm.
that much. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. It's such a, there's something so intimate about short stories. You
Yeah.
really feel like it's just you and the author.
Bozema suggests Jess Walter as well, whose first collection, well, he had um, Financial Lives of the Poets, which I think was a collection, and We Live in Water, which are terrific short story collections. And I have the luck that Jess's agent is also my wife's agent, so I'll be able to say I love these two authors in particular.
Yeah.
Jess is smart and funny, and
And
his
extremely
longer
kind.
works, the Cold Millions, Citizen Vince, The Zero, some amazing novels. And
Beautiful Ruins, that's my
Beautiful
favorite.
Ruins. You can go back and forth between sustained, deep, painful, beautiful Cold Millions, and he's got a new one out too, which I'm looking forward
And
to.
Laura is saying Alice Munro,
Yeah.
who now those stories to my mind are marked by the length. They're like their whole lives in a novel. I mean, in a short story, and the twists and turns. There's a who wrote The Trick of It?
That's the author of Clockwise and Noises Off, the playwright.
Frayn.
Michael Frayn. Yeah.
Well, Michael Frayn, he has a novel called The Trick of It that Andrew talks about all the time, which is a writing teacher who idolizes this author and just wants to know what's the trick of it. He ends up marrying her, and it covers many, many years, and finally asks her what's the trick of it, and she has no idea what he's talking about.
I was sitting at the LA Writers with you and Pico Iyer a year or 2 years ago, and talking about writers who we really, you look at their work and you cannot plummet. And it was Alice Munro, Elizabeth Strout, and I would say Shirley Hazard.
Yeah, Olive Kittredge are short stories.
They are. They're very close on Olive, though. I mean, they go outside of her a little here and there.
It's a village,
Yeah.
but they're short. Those are short stories, standalone short stories.
Mm-hmm. And even though she visits Olive again, and other character, my name is Lucy Barton, the daughter, but I don't think she did that again. I think she stepped more into
conventional novel.
Narrative forward, clear drama and conflict, and then following that through.
Yeah, I think more people are kind of enjoy her early stuff. And the stories, they're so strange.
They're so realistic, though, that you cannot. I mean, she will hit. I'll reread sentences, thinking, how did surely that happened? As I would think with Alice Munro, and then you look. Well, they can't have all happened. All of these things cannot have happened to her. She cannot have been all these people. That very steady, slow climb into verisimilitude. The ability to create an absolute feeling that, oh, this happened.
Right. Laura says, let's not forget David Sedaris, which is nonfiction.
Yeah, his agent also not taking queries. Yeah. But a voice, an amazing voice.
Yeah. Also, Laura says, Camille Bordas has amazing short stories. There's someone I'm not familiar with. You guys always give me the greatest recommendations. I'm having fun with that. I'm looking forward to that Updike. I've gotten over my aversion to those, I call them, kind of tassel loafer wearing, martini drinking East Coasty people. I have to get over it.
No one really does the O. Henry or Saki, the H.H. Munro, or the Guy de Maupassant type stories anymore, where there's that shocking last sentence. I'm trying to think if anybody's close. Sometimes Thomas McGuane's short stories will have that where you just howl in the last paragraph when you realize what he's managed to do, what the
Right.
characters
And then you
managed
go
to do.
back through, Saunders
And
does that.
yeah,
Sometimes you get to the last sentence and it's like, oh,
yeah, Dennis Johnson,
yeah.
the master of the last sentence, just haunting. And you ridiculous people, you expect me to save you. It just comes out of nowhere. That's a whole separate thing. That's a whole separate one. Right, Wednesday.
That's right. Well, last sentences, first sentences, we should do that. So thank you for joining me and talking about your process that goes on, and hopefully you'll actually see the collection eventually. And if you're writing short stories, start thinking about your collection as well, especially if you think, oh, I need another story. Here, I'm working with somebody now, writer I've known for many years, working with, reading her stuff. And she's decided that she's going to stick closer to theme. And she has pulled stories that are really good, I think, but she's wants to have them really cohere more as themed. I don't know. I think that there's no right answer. These are the questions that people think, and then everybody makes decisions for themselves. So thank you very much for being here, and we'll be here next time for Writing Wednesday. And if you have questions for me in the meantime, please send them to me. I just love getting your questions and being able to do a Writing Wednesday around your questions. So thank you very much. And thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
I was thinking of Michelle Atiele too. Her, she and Widow are thematically linked, but I don't think it's the same